pronounced by the President of our country. So I'm here on behalf of government and myself to thank you all for the work that we have done and that you continue to do on our own and working with all other law enforcement. That include the SABC and all the deployed officers on the ground. And I want to salute all of you men and women in uniform for a job well done. We are confronted by an invincible enemy. And that enemy can kill me or you. It doesn't have poor or rich. It attacks everybody. And some of you, in the course of duty, have contracted the disease. And in the course of doing your work, by being selfless and giving it your all. And I want to thank you for that and for doing a thankless job. Because nobody says at the end of the day for the work that you do, day and night. Thank you. But despite the fact that there's been a lockdown, as the statistics will show, there is a quantity of few people, very few, they don't even feed my head, who continue to break the law, who take chances, will still want to drive when it is said don't drive. And it was said that don't drive long distances, stay at home. Others defied them and even cause accidents during the period in which you wouldn't actually expect a single accident. But that does happen. That there are individuals who take such chances. So we got them even now, but they are not many. They are just few. People will come to you taking chances. I'm doing this, I'm going this direction. The revelations are clear, but the revelations are not to show the might of the law on innocent citizens. They are there to ensure that we are protecting ourselves against ourselves, and at the same time fighting the invincible enemy. That is what is important and must be understood. And by some, it is not understood. But I want to thank you all without any waste of time and continue to do the good work. I hope CBA, RTMC, JLPD, and everybody will give you a bonus at the end of everything. Because you deserve a bonus, isn't it? Yeah, you deserve a bonus. Why are you afraid to say that? Yeah, you deserve a bonus. Yeah. If there is money, and I would check myself yes. So, don't jump please from subs to RTMC, just stay there. The internet will sort you out. Do not deny RTMC. But thank you very much, law enforcement. Indeed, you deserve it, and keep the road safe, and keep educating, and ensure that the law does bite where people undermine the law. Thank you very much. Let's keep South Africa safe and keep everybody safe. Diabo Ngadanki. Thank you very much.
Really?
total number here, our total stress must remain 100. Thank you very much.
Oh, can understand the more. Sesinyana. Corrected himself, you're saying? If there's money. Yeah. You didn't say get there. Yeah. And then the other one, what's the ice is about Nika. So that meaning we're gonna keep it. Oh.
Observe social distancing, please, or is it correct to be yes,
yeah, give us space, lah. We're not allowed to side.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Social distancing has a negative connotation. So we must say physical distancing. Yes, yes. So if we can space ourselves out, please. Thank you very much. We'll start, Minister, I think in a minute or two. Allow the colleagues to just get their microphone set up. Are you taking it live? Yeah. Okay. Just give us a second or two. Let's get everybody on board. Why is it up and down?
Where is the first draft? Is your iPad not working?
It's off. I get unemployment.
Yeah, but the updated stuff.
I've got. Did he send it? Did he send it to you? No. Okay, I can send it to you.
I think. Let's put it up to top.
Get on your way. Yeah. I was. It's on. Get on your way. Yeah, good move.
I'm a bit high, I don't know why I'm a bit high.
Market.
Just a little bit more spacing, please, colleagues. Yep.
Yeah, but it didn't include it.
No, because the 074 number. I'm on 074.
It's not there.
I see. Secondly, height 074.
Oh, somebody's here.
Colleagues, please give us a minute or two. We're just having a slight technical difficulty. The tablet from whence the statement would be read is malfunctioning a little bit. So please just hold off. Those who are going live, ask for an extra 5 minutes. We should be ready in the next 5 minutes. But
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I think whilst we get set. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the media, once again, a very good morning to you all. Thank you very much for availing yourself and being of assistance in spreading this message of not only observing the regulations of COVID-19, but also ensuring that road safety is still top of the agenda. You will know that round about this time, where it's the year before or even the year before that, we would be announcing the statistics as they pertain to the Easter weekend and the road fatalities and some of the incidents that were there. So this year is no different. I think it's very important that we continue to be a government that is able to account to its citizenry. We continue to give you feedback on what's happening on the roads, even if at the moment we are dealing with issues of the coronavirus. So it is within that context that we're holding today's briefing. I know there's been some slight misunderstanding of whether or not we're claiming easy victories. There have been some murmurings about if it's necessary for us to have this conference. Remember, it is not a conference. In essence, we are responding to South Africans to say there was an Easter weekend. Has there been a decrease in fatalities? Has there been an increase in fatalities? It's important that we communicate. So it is the reason that we gathered here today to give you feedback and to give you feedback also for you to disseminate the information to South Africans to say, here are some of the lessons that we've learned. Here's what perhaps can be applied going forward to make sure that even next year we see different figures this time. So it's because of that that we gathered today. That is the background and the context. Before we start, perhaps let's give a signal to the officials at the back that we will go to with their voice.
Everybody must come up. Take a car, take a food. Our ready to go. Come out some fire, some of the sticks, some cigarettes, some liquor. So everybody when you stop a car must come out. And we must not to go on. Search for drugs, search for illicit things or transportation of wrong things. You know, in this time, no liquor is allowed to be transported. So, any truck that is passing here must be transporting essential things. You can't be transporting TV at this point in time. If you are doing that, you are breaking the law. Are we clear, colleagues? Yeah, so please, let's work together. Let's touch our people. Let's work with them nicely. But if there's a criminal, effect arrest immediately. Remember when we are here, we are in the border of Johannesburg and Citibank. When you stay in Citibank, you can't come to Johannesburg to buy groceries. You only come for essential services and vice versa. You can't leave Johannesburg to visit Citibank, otherwise you are breaking the law. Thank you very much and God bless you, colleagues.
Wonderful. At least now we know that it really is an operation and work is being done. All right, Honorable Minister, thank you once again to you. We also have, ladies and gentlemen, to my immediate left, the chairperson of RTMC, Mr. Zola Machavu. On the other side of the minister, there is the CEO of RTMC, Mr. Makosini Msibi. Minister, you can have the floor and give us the update of the road fatalities for the Easter weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the media, and thank you to the colleagues, the chairperson of the RTMC, and as well as the CEO. This year's statistics are released in the context of the coronavirus. Correctly so, some of you will ask a question about whether or not it is important to consider the statistics, because it is a given to most of you that people will be at home. But the statistics is a document of record, is a statement of record to say during the year of the coronavirus in the Easter weekend what actually happened. And we will actually illustrate that in terms of the report that we will be giving to South Africa about this Easter weekend. This year's Easter holidays came against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to a nationwide lockdown announced by the president. The consequence of this lockdown is the reduction of movement on our roads as prescribed by our directions. The reduction of vehicle movement on our roads is estimated to be at 70%, which actually answers the question that most of South Africans during this Easter weekend did obey the regulations. Equally, we release these statistics 2 days after a tragic road crash involving a minibus taxi and a truck in the Eastern Cape, which claimed 15 lives. I take this opportunity to send heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of the deceased. I also wish a speedy recovery to those injured in the collision. This accident sadly demonstrates willfully and dangerous disregard for our collective effort to preserve human life by obeying both the road and lockdown rules by some public transport operators. Although we have published directions that specifically limit the maximum number of passengers who may be transported in a taxi, the driver of the minibus involved in this collision ignored those directions. However, an investigation on the root cause of the crash is still underway, and the RTMC will release the findings once finalized. This crash happened outside of the Easter period, but the tragic loss of so many lives warrants our attention and intervention. The Easter period this year was defined as period starting on Thursday 9 April to Monday 13th of April. Our traffic law enforcement authorities had done extensive preparations for this period, which is ordinarily characterized by high traffic volumes, which places to places of pilgrimage and holidays. However, these plans were disrupted by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic on our shores. This meant that schools had to close early, Easter pilgrimages cancelled, and a ban imposed on traveling between metros, districts and provinces. As you would have heard in the speaker, that nobody is still allowed to travel between Johannesburg and Citybeng. Because of these measures, the number of vehicles dropped significantly over Easter period, as the majority of people stayed at home in compliance with the lockdown regulations. A reduction in traffic volumes also had a corresponding effect on the number of traffic violations. The number of drivers arrested for drunken driving was 11, while the number of drivers caught speeding stood at 1. This is in sharp contrast with 807 arrested for drunken driving and 192 for speeding in 192. However, any attempt to compare year-on-year figures will be an exercise in futility, as the material conditions this Easter are fundamentally different from a normal period where traffic is able to move freely. The total number of arrests for violation of road traffic laws stood at 719, while traffic law enforcement authorities meant 480 roadblocks. A total of 104,140 vehicles were stopped and checked at these roadblocks. The number of vehicles impounded was 236, with 171 vehicles discontinued due to unroadworthiness. Over the same period in 2019, The number of arrests for violation of road traffic laws was 1,343, with 141 roadblocks. The number of vehicles impounded was 1,555, while vehicles discontinued for unroadworthiness stood at 702. In addition to enforcing road traffic laws, authorities had to enforce the lockdown regulations and directions. As a consequence, 184 vehicles were stopped and ordered to return home for traveling in contravention of the lockdown regulations and directions. As at the end of the Easter weekend, 26 fatal crashes were recorded, which resulted in 28 fatalities. Most of the crashes involved pedestrians and single vehicles overturned, with contribution of 38% and 19% respectively. This is in contrast with the 128 crashes recorded over the same period in 2019, claiming 162 lives. Drivers constituted 42% of fatalities, followed by pedestrians at 31% and the passengers at 27%. The 2020 Easter period was extraordinary, as there was limited movement. Despite the lockdown, there were those allowed to travel. The provincial breakdown of the 26 crashes is as follows. Mpumalanga account for 6 crashes, resulting in 7 fatalities. KwaZulu-Natal, 5 crashes, resulting in 6 fatalities. Eastern Cape, 5 crashes, resulting in 5 fatalities. Gauteng, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Western Cape, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Northwest, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Limpopo, 1 crash, resulting in 1 fatality. Free State is 0, and the Northern Cape. A number of major crashes recorded prior to Easter season were investigated by Road Traffic Management Corporation. A number of these investigations have since been completed. The investigation into a collision involving a Toyota Avanza and a Toyota Hi-Ace minibus on 11 March 2020 has been completed. The crash happened on the R553 Golden Highway in Gauteng, and it claimed 12 lives of scholars, including both drivers. The investigation concluded that the drive shaft of the minibus vehicle broke off, causing the driver to lose control of the vehicle. The finding is that this crash occurred as a result of the poor maintenance of the Toyota Hi-Ace minibus. The minibus was not roadworthy, and its license disc had expired 5 years earlier. In view of this, we have pressed for charges of culpable homicide. We'll further intensify our visibility on scholar transport. This will also include closer collaboration with the Department of Basic Education to ensure that no school allows children to be transported in unroadworthy vehicles. We will be introducing a new requirement that those involved in transporting scholars must, on quarterly basis, subject themselves to compliance tests and must submit a compliance certificate to the school. Our law enforcement authorities will subject scholar transport operators to heavy scrutiny and rigorously ensure compliance. We will ensure that all unroadworthy vehicles are impounded. We are currently consulting with MECs to increase impounded fee to minimum of 10,000 for first-time offenders. On the 2nd of March 2020, a total of 25 people lost their lives when a bus carrying 98 occupants went down a steep slope in Kolweni near Kantani in the Eastern Cape. You will remember this accident like yesterday, where we conducted a mass funeral recently in the Eastern Cape. The investigation in this accident found that human error was the most likely root cause of the crash. The driver overtook a light delivery vehicle, and as he returned to the left of the road, he oversteered and lost control of the bus. The bus then left the gravel road, tipped over and slid down a slope. A full comprehensive mechanical investigation found no mechanical defects or failures in the bus. The road was found to be in a fair condition and not likely to have been the cause of the crash. The investigation further revealed that the certificate of roadworthiness of the bus had expired in December 2020, but it had continued operating in contravention of the law. Similarly, the license disc of the bus had expired, and the bus was therefore not supposed to be on the road. Our law enforcement will ensure compliance with road traffic laws and will put in place robust measures to ensure full compliance by all bus operators. Buses that fail to comply with these measures will be impounded and heavy penalties handed over on operators. A case of culpable homicide had been opened, and we will ask the court for harsher penalties. Had this bus not been on the road, this tragic accident will not have happened. We are forging ahead with our proposal to reclassify certain offences so that for this type of accident, those found culpable are charged with murder rather than culpable homicide. In January 2020, a driver and 5 passengers died in a bus crash on the R81 Egasegopo village in Limpopo. The investigation also found human error. The driver failed to engage a lower gear to enable safe traveling on the steep road. She subsequently lost control of the bus and it overturned. A full mechanical examination of the bus found no mechanical defects, and the road was found to be in good condition. On 16 June, 24 people were killed when a bus and a minibus were involved in a head-on collision on the R81 near Mapalle village in Limpopo. The investigation found that the road was in good condition and visibility was good when the crash occurred. The driver of the minibus was in a process of overtaking a barrier line when he crashed head-on with an oncoming vehicle. These reports demonstrate a blatant disregard of the rules of the road by some motorists with tragic consequences. All these crashes could have been avoided if the drivers conducted themselves responsibly. We would also like to reflect on the regulations that give effect to the lockdown. The disaster management regulations published by the Minister of Cooperative Governance, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, remain in force and have been extended for the duration of the extended lockdown period. This extension includes the directions we have issued covering all modes of transport. Yesterday, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma published amendments to these regulations to lay the foundation for the risk-adjusted measures that the President talked about in his address last week, that will enable a phased recovery of the economy, allowing the return to operation of certain sectors under strictly controlled conditions. The amended regulations made it clear that the transportation of essential goods are permitted from warehousing sites to essential services providers. Cargo may be moved from ports of entry to warehousing sites where handling and clearing of cargo is conducted, with the exception of the transportation of liquor. And cargo may be transported to ports of entry for purposes of exporting. We specifically make provision for export of cargo to decongest the ports. Now that all cargo is allowed to move, we have to be alive to the practical implications of this, particularly the domino effect on the value chain. The unintended consequence of this movement is that inbound cargo gets stuck at port, as some businesses that are required to enable the movement of this cargo to their final destination are not operational during the lockdown, resulting in high storage costs for businesses. Our ports of entry are not designed to function as warehouses for inbound cargo, and then this creates a blockage at port. Similarly, Minister Zuma announced that stores selling hardware products and vehicle components may open but must maintain a register of persons buying essential goods listed in the regulations. There's been a complaint, not even a complaint, an issue raised by minibus taxis and all those who are operating about this particular matter. And now the regulations are actually catering for that. As part of this process, we have taken stock of the efficacy of the measures we have put in place to enable the lockdown. In extending the lockdown for a further 2 weeks, we have identified areas that pose unmitigated risk that require adjustment. In relation to movement of minibus taxis, our law enforcement counterparts flagged a critical challenge that once taxis complete their morning run between 5 to 10 a.m., these taxis park at the rank, resulting in a mass gathering of drivers at these ranks, which is prohibited. These taxis should be parked at places where they ordinarily park overnight, and drivers should return to their homes to avoid indirect gatherings. We will attend to this particular matter immediately. Our law enforcement efforts will continue to enforce the lockdown rules and ensure compliance by all road users. Enforcement of the rule of the road will continue in earnest in order to maintain law and order on our roads. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now yours. Do you have any questions for the Minister? Any areas of clarification? Any concerns? Yes, Mangoba.
Okay, Minister Mangoba, I mean, it's quite unbelievable the numbers that we see here this morning. In fact, I think many people are not actually believing that you're down to 28. But I think the question is what happens post the lockdown in terms of regulations. How do you keep and make sure that the bloodbath is limited on the country's roads? What's the plan going forward? What are you planning to do with regard to that? And secondly, will some of these regulations that we see during the lockdown, especially with regard to public transport, I speak of taxis, trains and so forth. I mean, we've seen trains from Soweto with people hanging out of the trains literally. Will those regulations still stand even after the lockdown?
Thank you so much.
Minister Haubalele from Jacaranda, could you please go into what is feeding into the idea of increasing the impound fee? Why do you guys think that's a great idea?
Come again?
The impound fee, why is increasing it important for...
Why is it important to increase the impound fee? Do we have another question, colleagues? Okay, so perhaps for this round, boss, you can take those two. We also, like I mentioned, we also have the management and the board chair of RTMC. So if there are any operational questions, they are happy to also take those and to address them. Welcome to our colleagues from newsrooms, Zoni Fine and Elate. So those questions can be fielded by either the minister and or the chair or the CEO. First?
The reduction of the bloodbath, it is remains our concern, not even a concern. It is part of our program of action. You will know that from last year, the president launched the Safety on Our Roads campaign, and that campaign continues. Among others, this campaign is accompanied by focusing on the strengthening the law, to enable our law enforcement officers on the ground to be in a position to have the necessary power to ensure that we bring to book those who break the law, and that we ensure that you sit down before you get into a taxi. So we've got to ensure that these regulations, among others, in terms of law enforcement on the road, are actually adhered to. You will remember that we launched the 365 days wire campaign, and that campaign continues. This year, we observed the enforcement of the lockdown in relation to the regulations on coronavirus, as it is reflected in the regulation. Numbers of our people deserve a good round of applause because they stayed at home and they obeyed the regulations. So we are not thumb-sucking when we say that there is no person on the road and everybody obeys the regulations. We are giving you statistical evidence that our people, motorists, and everyone else have been very much disciplined, and we applaud them for that. It shows that we are really taking the lockdown serious, and so on. Like they say in Zulu, kuko amahlongandlebe. There are always people who are getting out of the way even in difficult times. Those who want to see things with their eyes. We are saying the coronavirus is invincible. They say we want to see it. They get into the road, they get into accidents, they try their chances. The regulations are clear. You don't have to travel. It is closed down, it is locked down. But they take their chances. They fake permits, they do all of that. But this kind of people are not many. They are very few. It's a coterie of few people. As much as they get publicity, don't think that the rest of South Africa is not a law-abiding nation. Difficult as the lockdown it is, our people have kept it together. Have kept it together, and they've been, following the restrictions as they've been promulgated over a period of time. So we thank people for that, and that is what accounts for the low numbers. There is no victory to claim out of that. Unfortunately, as a Minister of Transport, I cannot pray for decongestion on the road. It is my nightmare for many years to come, which we are dealing with road traffic management. As the economy grows, many people get jobs, everybody's got a car. And my strategic objective is to move goods and people off the road and basically move them on the trains over time. And that is why there is a talk of a speed train, which is, among others, the things that we're basically considering. But thank you to everyone. Lockdown regulations will not be enforced going forward, as it will be directed by the President and the NCC. But for now, they will be. Of course, there are lessons that we need to take from lockdown with us as we accelerate service delivery. You would have seen that things are moving faster in the lockdown than in the normal period of our work. We want to carry on with that. I want to reiterate again, the people who are concerned with their car licenses and their driver's licenses, those licenses, I want to reiterate, that expired and been affected by the lockdown, and the lockdown that is extended, you will get a reprieve from government. Meaning, we will not say to you, your car is unroadworthy. It is understandable that you are actually facing a challenge of the lockdown. We are also planning, in terms of the readjustment, the numbers of people who are going to be on queue immediately the lockdown eases going forward. And how are we going to deal with those numbers in all our centers throughout the country? Among others, we are expediting the online digital approach, in which people can get their licenses online and on time and faster. And that's what we are working on together with the RTMC. And when we are totally ready with that, and it is as efficient and so on, we'll be able to come back to you to introduce the measures we are taking in terms of the digital platforms. Why is important to reduce impound fee, to increase? It is important. We hope it will act as a deterrent. It should not be easy that you can get on the road with an unroadworthy vehicle and you just pay peanuts to get your car released, and that is it. It should actually be more than 10,000. You should actually, in my view, raise to 100,000. But we're looking at those going forward and raising this particular fee, because people must learn to obey the law. And if you disobey the law, you must pay the consequences. And the law must deduct from you to pay for those who abide for the rule of law in the country. So thank you very much. I think those were the questions.
Those were the questions. Thank you so much, Minister. Colleagues, any other questions? Okay. In the absence of those questions, we can get an update of the statistics and maybe a broad overview of what's been happening today. And thereafter, Boss, I'm going to ask you to wrap for us. And in your wrapping, Newsroom Africa has asked just for a highlight of the statistics. Again, the 26 collisions resulting in 28 deaths. Maybe we can do that as we wrap. And then we can do Nguni languages and Sesotho or Setswana for the SABC. But before we wrap and close, Chair, perhaps let's come to you.
No, just a quick update. As at 9:15, the officers have just given me the following information to pass on to you and the country at large. 18 arrests have been effected since this operation this morning until 9:15, Minister. And the breakdown of those arrests is as follows. 11 people have been arrested for failure to confine in compliance with the lockdown regulations. 1 taxi driver has been arrested for overload and attempting to bribe a police official. 4 persons were arrested for traveling cross-boundary without permits, and 1 of them being suspected as fraudulent. And 2 taxi drivers have been arrested for driving an overloaded taxi, and those 2 taxis have subsequently been impounded. In total, 18 people are currently being processed at the nearby police station as we speak. I have also been informed by the commanding officers that the statistics with regard to the arrests and whatever transpires from these operations will be updated on a 30-minute basis. And perhaps before your midday reports, I'll direct the CEO to then make the updated statistics available, because we do believe that it is information that we should share transparently with the general public. And of course, those people who've been arrested continue to have their constitutional rights, and we'll ensure that in the course of enforcing the law, people's rights are respected, but we're calling upon citizenry also to respect the rights of officers and acknowledge that they too are human beings who are worthy of constitutional protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Advova, do you have anything to contribute? You are covered. Okay. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to ask the Minister to just quickly then reiterate the dates for us, and then give us a soundbite in isiZulu or siXhosa, Sesotho or Setswana.
I've been asked to repeat this. The 2020 Easter period was extraordinary, as there was limited movement. Despite the lockdown, there were those who were allowed to travel. The provincial breakdown of the 26 crashes is as follows. Mpumalanga, 6 crashes, resulting in 7 fatalities. KwaZulu-Natal, 5 crashes, resulting in 6 fatalities. Eastern Cape, 5 crashes, resulting in 5 fatalities. Gauteng, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Western Cape, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Northwest, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Limpopo, 1 crash, resulting in 1 fatality. Free State, 0, and Northern Cape, 0. So those are the statistics in relation to the breakdown province by province. That is for the Easter period in this past weekend. Just to wrap up, I think we have explained for this year 2020, the Easter weekend, which will be remembered for coronavirus, that the majority of our people and the motorists on the road did obey and abide by the regulations and stayed at home, and there were no chance takers. Those who did so were very few. But nonetheless, you can imagine, even during this period of lockdown, we have 28 people dead on the road. 28 people died even during the lockdown, and majority of which it is pedestrians. It is people who are moving on their own, and all statistics every year, even the past ones during December, will show that the majority of people who got involved in deaths, it is pedestrians. So our call continues that the people who are walking on foot must look after themselves and also obey the rules, because they constitute a high number of these fatalities. And others, it is reckless driving, where people get involved in accidents because of reckless driving. As you would have seen, as I conclude, that the accidents that take place, the bus in Kantani was due to reckless driving in terms of the report we got. As much as the road was in good condition, but it's not the road that you can afford to have the slightest mistake in terms of driving. So in this particular instance, it led to the death of people in that particular area of Ekolweni in the Eastern Cape. That shocked the whole nation in terms of the numbers of people who passed away. But what come out of this is that vehicles, and in particular these buses, are unroadworthy. Now, the Department of Transport will have to take measures for companies that are giving unroadworthy vehicles to their workers to drive citizens in the country. In areas like Kantani and Ekolweni, where you have such companies, you will know that because of overstretched law enforcement, these people are not easy to pick. You can only find them when there is an accident and people have actually died. But nonetheless, our law enforcement will be directed to that company in terms of the roadworthiness of its vehicles, and the Minister of Transport will undertake a mission to basically look at these companies, and we will not hesitate to close them down. And that's what we're going to do going forward. As we got caught up with the coronavirus, this was our program of action. And when we go back to normal work and all of that, we will equally go back to those who break the law and follow on the consequences that need to be meted out against them in undermining the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, boss. Maybe SABC, let's have it as a one-on-one in Nguni languages so
Yeah,
we don't
one-on-one.
inconvenience the other colleagues. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I've sent through a soft copy of the statement. Should you not have one, please let me know. I'm more than happy to give you an electronic copy as well. Thank you.